This is for y'all beginning weed smokers out there. Now, a lot of y'all don't know how good the weed is or how bad it is. I'm going to give you 12 tips on figuring out whether your weed purchase is a good purchase or a bad purchase. Number one, you need to look for lots of crystals. Crystals on the weed are the THC themselves. If the bud is covered in little white crystals or little clear crystals, and I mean there's a lot of them, that usually is a sign of good weed. It should not be too dry. If it is dry, then you're going to more than likely have really bad weed because, for one, it looks like shit. If there's no stickiness and it just crumbles as you break it up, it's probably a good sign that it's going to be some really bad shit. I mean, it's going to be some shit weed. Dirt weed is what we call it. Lots of sticks and seeds is never a good sign because the more sticks and seeds you have, the less weed there is. If it has excessive amount of sticks and seeds, there's a problem. Not only for the fact that you have too short of weed, but for the fact that the quality of weed you just purchased sucks. Because there is so many stems and seeds. It also needs to be green. Other colors are acceptable, but mainly it needs to be green. I've had weed that's been purple, orange, red, yellow, blue. I mean, colors are acceptable. Brown weed is not an acceptable color. It's far from acceptable. Brown means it's either been prematurely cut or it just was sucky weed to begin with. Potency of the smell. If you can smell the weed from the bag, then that is good. Have you ever heard the what the fuck is it called? I can't think of the word. Have you ever heard somebody say, damn, this weed is dank? A dank weed smell equals really good shit. Because if you can smell it from the bag, then 90% of the time, you're going to have a very good product. If it's faint or no smell at all, it's usually going to be bad. Now, I've had some weed that doesn't have any smell to it, but you know, that was actually pretty decent shit, and the only reason it didn't have any smell to it, probably because it was made through hash and etc, etc. But it was still pretty decent weed, but not the best, not the worst. I've had some black weed. I mean, it looks just like fucking coal dirt. That sucked. But the potency of the smell tells you how good your product will be. It should not be too wet. It needs to be sticky, but not wet. It doesn't need to be dry, and it doesn't need to be soggy. If it's soggy, then it has not been properly dried out and just cut off the stem. Whenever you get your harvest, you need to take them plants and pin them to a wall, upside down, so all the THC will run from the leaves, plant, stem, and all into that bud. If it is too wet, 90% of the time, wet weed has been cut off the plant and sold. Very, very bad sign. If it is really leafy, this means if it's puffy and it looks real leafy to it, you will not have a lot of weed. It will break up and be nothing at all. You're wanting to look for compressed weed. Compressed weed, you may not look like much. You break one bud up, you're going to have 4 or 5 joints. Look for hairs. Those little hairs on the end of your weed are like gold. If there are a lot of them, it's going to be some good shit. If there's not that many of them, it's going to be some bad shit. If it don't have any hairs at all, you just got fucked. But look for them little hairs on your bud. Avoid bullshit dealers. I can't emphasize how important it is to have dealers who you can trust. If you have a guy that has consistently good weed, keep him as long as you possibly can. I will post another video on the traits of good dealers. But for now, let's stick to good weed. Avoid bullshit dealers. If a dealer gives you the runaround, usually it's a bullshit dealer. It should feel sticky. Why do you think rappers say, I have the sticky icky icky? The stickier the weed, the harder to break up. You will have better weed. If the weed just crumbles as you twist it, it's not going to be good weed. And then sometimes there is no way to tell until you smoke it. It's a sad truth, but sometimes you will never know if it's good or not until you smoke said product. If you smoke the weed and it makes you higher than hell off of 3 hits, good weed. If you smoke the weed and it doesn't make you high until you have the 3rd joint, throw that bag away because it's worth shit. It's a waste. Do not buy the weed that you gotta smoke 3 joints to get one little buzz off of. Do not buy that. Count that dealer out. Write him off as a fucked dealer. And then experience counts for a lot. If you've been smoking as long as I have, you can usually tell if the weed is going to be good or not. I am like a bloodhound when it comes to fucking weed. I can walk down the road, and if I smell any slight scent of pot, I can pinpoint the exact spot where it's at. Experience counts a lot. If your dealer does not count the bag out in front of you on the scale, bad dealer. That's another trait that I have found out in my years of smoking. I've been smoking since I was 5. The more you buy it, the better you will become figuring out what is what. Be patient, pay attention to what you buy, and if you are a new weed buyer, don't make it obvious or else you will get taken advantage of. That is the ending of this video, and I will now make another one on the traits of a good dealer. Peace.